topic is Google Analytics multiply data science. Basically, like the Google Analytics is great, but you can get the data and apply data science various methods. And then you can do a lot of cool things. Most importantly, you can gain deeper insights about your business. So this is the Google Analytics. When you go to the Google Analytics page, and this is what you see. It has a bunch of tons of many dashboards were pre-created. And then you just hoping you find something interesting. You might find something useful. The problem is though that basically if you are the Google Analytics users, you embed some like special code in your websites, and then the moment you do it, Google started collecting tons of data of like whatever the activity happening around your websites. However, the thing you see from their pre-canned or pre-built dashboard is sort of like just a tip of iceberg. A lot of data behind it, but somehow like you can't really access it, or you can't really see the way it's useful to answer your questions. And that is, I think, the big problem, because so much data you're producing, but and how much of the data you actually use it for your to answer your questions. So by downloading that data itself, not that somebody created for everybody kind of stuff. Like your business is different from like a next person. So instead, you can extract the data, then you can visualize it from various perspectives, or you can transform the data the way you need, and then apply various analytics methods so that you can gain deeper insights about your business to answer your own questions. And I think that's really key things. So applying the data science workflow, so let's say like data access, data wrangling, visualization, analytics, those are the things that I like to talk about today. So how you access the Google Analytics data. So if you are the Exploratory users, or you're considering of using Exploratory, then it's pretty simple. Like you select a view, you select period, you select dimensions and measures. Sorry, this is actually metrics. And then if you use a segment in Google Analytics, you set the segment, then you import the data. So this is sort of basic steps. So like you select the Cloud Apps data from under the data frame menu, and then you select Google Analytics. And then this is like you select account and property and view. And then once you select those, if you have only one, then you don't even have to select just pretty much one. But sometimes you manage multiple accounts, multiple property. In that case, you want to select those. And then you set the period, you can do various options. So you might want to say last 3 months, last 1 year, 2 years, or you want to say like, hey, after this particular date to today. It's up to you. And then you set the period. And then if you have the segment, this is optional. If you have defined segment, or you might want to use like a predefined segment in the Google Analytics, then you can select. And the segment, just in case, is actually a pretty kind of cool feature in the Google Analytics. You can create a segment in the Google Analytics UI. And then two things, you can create the, for users or based on the sessions. So for example, the users who have visited the particular product page, a particular page, and you can create such segment. You can create a segment, for example, like users who have converted or not converted. Or if you want to focus on the sessions, then you can say, you can create a segment of the sessions that came from the particular source, so, such as Google search, or maybe like Facebook or something like that. Or you can create a segment of this, of sessions that came from particular device, particular country, particular regions, and so on. So you can create those segments. Then once you create it, then you can select from this drop down. Okay. So then Next thing is this is basically the core thing, a main thing. You select the dimensions and metrics. And then the dimensions and metrics, when you see those in Google Analytics, basically it's sort of like kind of category is the dimensions. And then metrics is the one that kind of quantitative measure of what you're interested in. Okay, so dimension can be landing page, country, device type, and so on. And the metrics can be number of sessions, page views, conversion rates, and so on. One thing you want to be careful is something called scope. So Google Analytics collects the data, but collects at the different levels, and then sort of kind of summarized by those levels. So each dimension measure belongs to a particular level of scope. That means you can't mix across various, like different levels. So what do I mean? So think of it this way. So like here's a user A, user B, blue user, red user. And then blue user comes, and then like the first time, like they, this person check out the top page and then go somewhere else. And then 30 minutes later, this person remember that website and come back. And then visit page A, page D, page A, and then goes somewhere else. And then after that, comes back again, and then page D, and then start shopping. Maybe like purchasing some products, and then get the confirmation page. That was the end of the session. And then the red person comes, and then this person comes only once, but visits 3 pages: top page and page A, page B, and then goes somewhere else. So something like this happened, then there's 3 levels of scope. Like number 1 is something called user, and then number 2 session, and then number 3 hit. So the user is that like a blue and then red color thing. So like that's the user. So where this user come from, Japan or United States, or maybe from Facebook, and then also. And the session is, for example, in this case, the above, the blue. So this above blue person had 3 sessions, while the red person had 1 session. And then the last one is called hit. This can be the page visit or click, or maybe like purchasing something, some kind of event, whatever the interaction happens. So in this case, for example, the blue color person, that hit is a first session. This person had only 1 hit, and then the next session, this person had 3 hits, and then after had 4 hits, and so on. So, so that's the, so some of the metrics belong to user session, some of the metrics dimension belong to user. So you can't mix much, and that's a kind of a tricky things. And then, but typically once you start thinking about it, it makes sense. But the first time like you start using it, like you get kind of confused. So when you see some error, like let's say like you selected conversion rate with someone like user, I think maybe let's say like user, and then you get some error, then that's what usually means. I'm going to probably share some documents to kind of guide you through like what are the scope, like what are the combination kind of stuff after this session. Okay, so anyway, so that's one thing to be careful. But other than that, like typically, like if, you want to just select the dimensions that you're interested in, and you want to select the metrics you're interested in, and click run button, and you get the data. Then there's a way to sort of limit only the things that selected, because there are like hundreds of dimensions of measures. So sometimes like when you select them, you get kind of like lost, like which metrics are selected or something like that. So you can click on this button, show only selected items button, to select only the ones that are selected. And once you see the data in the preview looks okay, then you click save button, and then you get that data imported. And then that from this point is basically the same thing as you do in Exploratory. So first thing you see in the summary view, and then from here you can visualize, or you can start data wrangling, and so on. Okay, so then let's go to the visualization. So common challenges, there are many challenges, of course, but common challenge I see is challenge or like benefit of using Exploratory in a way is four things I want to talk about in this session. So number one, hey, like I want to aggregate data flexibly by specific date and time level. And so that's one thing. Number one. Number two is want to group the data into multiple groups, then or more like break down into multiple groups, so that like you can compare the trends and patterns across the groups. Number three, too many unique values for dimensions. So like how you're going to do is that this is really sounds like kind of challenge. And then fourth is want to visualize the variation and the uncertainty of the data rather than just summarized values. So let's start with date. So when you import, I think this was something that I'm going to just kind of start getting into the demo mode. Just 1 second. Okay. Oops. Yeah. Let's get that data from Google Analytics from here. Let's see. Hope this works. Network is looking okay, so should work. Okay, here you go. So Google Analytics. And then this is the UI that I was talking about. And then I think my account property view already set because I've been using this. So it looks okay. First time you use, you will get like a kind of auth window asking you to grant the permission to access your Google Analytics data or something. And then you grant access, then you get this view. So let's say, for example, let's say like maybe 2 years, and then I want to see like a page view of sessions or bounce rate and then so on. So let's say, for example, the date, I'm going to select the date. And then let's say like I want to see by the country. So like let's say select the country. Okay, and which dimensions are selected? Okay, so I can click on this button. And then metrics, let's say, here's the sessions and maybe like bounce rate and maybe page view. How about page views and so on. And then you can start selecting whatever the one you're interested in, but I'm gonna just stop right here. Then like, it's basically extracting the last 2 years and then so many of the countries data. And about like 26,000 rows, and it looks okay. I'm gonna just click on save and create a data frame. So now this data frame has those 5 columns. And then the first thing I'm gonna do is like go to the chart and start visualizing that data. And let's see like how that page views are performing, right? So number one is select the line chart and x-axis and then date. This is the date column. So so from 2018 March 11th to 2020 March 11th. And then so I like to see, so default is the year. So like I'm basically seeing like 1, 2, 3 data points, but I want to see that trend by, how about like a month? And then like I can see that by months, so like 2000 May, June, and so on. I can change this to weekly or day, and so on. One thing I noticed here, though, by the way, so here's a huge drop, like around the March. And what happened here? Well, this happens often. This is not necessary for the Google Analytics data, but the thing is here. I think I created some slides. Oops. So as you can see, that I use a color and give the color to each month, right? And then when you see at the very right-hand side, the March 10th, I think today is 11th actually, I created this slide yesterday, but March 11th or 10th, whatever that is, we have only 10 days of the month, right? Like usually each month has a 30 days and so. So when you summarize or you get the total of each month, then the March number should go down because we have only 10 days compared to 30 days in other months. So it's not really useful to compare when you're, especially when you're comparing with the total numbers of them each month. So therefore, in this case, what I like to do is I want to consider March is not ready to be put in here to compare the with other trend. So I'm gonna filter it out. I can create a filter step, or I can create a filter inside the chart, either way. So let's do that inside the chart for now. And then I'm gonna select not equal to, and then how to set value here. Instead of setting the date, I wanna say not this month. If you are analyzing by weekly, you could do is like, you can say like, hey, exclude this week, because last week data, like you have already 7 days of the data. This week, let's say like today is a Wednesday, so therefore like you still have half of the week data. So you can select that this week. But this case, I'm doing that by month, so like I'm gonna select this month, and then just click run on it. Then now the last data is February. So from until like end of the February or something. So of course, February has like fewer days, few days shorter than the other months. So it can be because of that. There's numbers goes down. So, but anyway, so assuming most of the months is more or less the same, and then like we can see like, okay, so the March data is actually not here. So, but that was kind of a little sideway, but let's get back to, we want to flexibly sort of like summarize the data by, date or time level. This column happened to be like a date. If this column is containing the hour or minutes data, you're gonna see like hour or minutes data as, here as well. Other thing is you can do is you want to extract the month component or week day component. What that mean? If I, for example, select this month's short name or long name, and then like what you're going to see is the x-axis is now, it's sort of a kind of a categorical, but January, February, and March, and so on. And you remember this one has supposed to be, let's say, 2018 data, 2019 data, so like those 2 years of the data. But this option is basically kind of rounding. So therefore, we still have the year information. 2018 April is different from 2019 April. If I choose this month's short name, then I don't care that year. I just care about April. April is April. So in that case, you can select something like this, or you can do like, for example, by the day of week. So like I want to see like which, like a Sunday goes up or like a Saturday goes down, and that type of trend. You can use that as well. Cool thing about this is that, like, for example, like I want to select the months, let's say, to be x-axis, so from January to December. And I want to see like that's, oh, by the way, y-axis, I'm using number of rows. That doesn't make any sense here. Sorry about that. Let's change to sessions. Okay, so that's more to do with Google Analytics data. And then what I want to do is that I want to compare this trend happens across the years. So what I mean by this is like 2018, 2019, how did that change? And then like in that case, for example, I can use the color and then assign the date. And then this is now like each color representing that year, right? So orange is 2019, and then blue is 2018, and so on. So I can see 2019, we got something better compared to the year before. So that's the good thing. However, this 2020, we still have like a 1-2 months, didn't perform better than the 2019. So that type of things you can actually quickly do. Okay, so that's the aggregating the date thing. And the other challenge we have is, oh yeah, and the other thing is like you might sometimes want to sort of like see kind of dissecting. So this one is a grand total, right? Grand total meaning it's all the data, but we extracted from the Google Analytics about the country data. So we have like Japan or United States and so on. So how about understanding that trend by the country? And you could do by assigning a country to the column, but you can actually use this repeat by. So I'm gonna change this a little bit so to make it a little simpler. Color, and then yeah, months is good, and sessions, that's good. Then I want to kind of, oh yeah, here aggregation level, I'm gonna just round to months instead of like extracting to the months. And then like, I want to see the trend compared among the countries. So you can use this repeat by, and then when you select a country or something, then you get a bunch of charts repeated by each country. So in this case, it looks like most of the countries similar. And then I see Japan and then United States, and there's something called others. You might have noticed though, this country has 186 unique values. So therefore, as a default, it creates other group. Instead of repeating 186 times for every single country, like it actually do some kind of special thing. So click on this green icon, and it says based on frequency. This is actually based on number of rows. So like more rows of the data, then it will, the top 20 countries stay as they are, and then again everything else like 160 countries will become just one group called other. But let's say like, hey, you know what, like I want to focus on like, let's say top 5 or something. You can change that, and then like now like these are the top 5 in terms of number of rows. So like, some countries don't have any access so in every day, so those countries tend to get disappear. Or you could select particular country. Hey, you know what? Like I want to see, let's say, interested in, oops, Japan, and then other country to be, let's say, like United States or something. Like I want to see like these 2 countries, particular countries. Then like I can see that Japan and United States and other as well. So this is sort of like you can dissect and also like focus on zooming in particular countries. Yeah. So then the next challenge is sometimes when you have too many unique values for dimensions. So what I mean by that is exact the case like we're talking about. So this country has 186. We already took care of some of the problem by creating the other group, but you can do some other techniques and some other methods as well. So that's here. There you go. So we did this like a third one, that create other group, but I want to show like how you can limit values based on the top n or top 10 or bottom n or something, or creating a condition. And then lastly, like I want to cover something called highlight. So we have this 186 countries. And then if I click on this chart icon, then you get like a number of rows, and then I can, let's say like by the sessions or something. And then there are a bunch of countries, and some of the country name is not showing up because there's no space for those number 186. There, but like pretty much these are the countries that has so meaningful numbers, and then like other than that, not much. So in that case, like how many countries you want to display, and you can actually use this something called limit access values. And the limit access value is sort of like a filter. Click on it, and then you can select the top. And for example, I want to keep top 30. And then based on whatever the y-axis column right now, the set number of sessions, and then I can click apply button. Now like I'm seeing like only 30 countries here. Other thing I could do, this happens often, if you are looking at, for example, sometimes a bounce rate, and bounce rate, you don't want to sum that. Like let's go to average or something. And then when you see something like this, right now I'm limiting top 30 countries based on the y-axis, which is happen to be the bounce rate. And the bounce rate 100%, like Antigua, Mabuba, Aruba, Gambia, all the countries I want to go for vacation. However, I don't probably the reason these 100% is can be accident, meaning what if like we have only 10 access and it happen to be those 10 access bounce, then like you get 100%. Where maybe the country like United States, we have like tens of thousands, hundreds of accesses. Therefore, it's almost impossible to imagine like all of them to be bounce, right? So Same thing, bounce is like people come to the website and then go somewhere else instead of like browsing through and going to the different pages. So in this case, instead of limiting based on the y-axis, what we want to do is create a condition. So select the conditions, and then based on, let's say, we have like a, other metrics. So in this case, let's say we use sessions, and the operator is maybe like a greater than, let's say like I don't know, 300 sessions, or maybe how about 1,000 session or something like that. So at least the countries with a particular number of the sessions, and we want to see and how their bounce rate are. And in this case, it's a little bit more fair that compared to others. So like we don't really have those 100% bounce rate, rather more like kind of decent numbers. Though still, you can say this bounce rate is high, but that's really not the point. So like we can see here as well. Okay, so that's how you can limit values. And then also other way to do it is you creating other group. You can do that for the x-axis, or you can do that for the color, you can do that for the repeat by, and so on. Other thing I want to do here is when you are, let's say, browsing through, let's say, looking at the trend, and then let's imagine like, hey, like I want to see like how the bounce rate is changing, right? And I'm going to change that to average again. And then I want to see by the country. And then the way you can do, one thing you can do is you can do the repeat by, right? But this time, like I want to use a color to break them down. And you ended up getting something like this. And you're like, whoa, what's going on? You notice that here's a green text, and then it automatically basically limit only like 20, keep the only most frequent values in the countries in this case, and the others are like 160 countries go down into this thing called other group. But let's say sometimes you want to limit. So in that case, so this is like based on frequency. So you can change that to, for example, again, doing the same thing. Let's say I want to say Japan, and then I want to see United States, and then keep all other countries to be under the other group. And I can do that as well. Then I can compare, just sort of like when you have three, like it's much easier to compare. And I can see that like which countries, the United States bounce rate is going up compared to other group or so. But this is one thing you could do, but instead of doing so, let's say, you know what, like I'm not gonna do any this like other group, and I wanna just show everything. And yes, this is too crazy. But from here, you can, let's say, highlight certain countries. Let's say I want to highlight let's say Japan or something. Where's Japan? Here. And apply that. And then like see like where Japan actually belongs among all others. This is actually too crazy. Just let's limit that a little bit. Just too crazy here. I want to limit just let's say like 20 countries or something. And then like I want to see like how Japan's bounce rate performing compared to other countries. And then I can even add highlight to let's say like I want to see like United States to be maybe a different color, and see this sort of like gives you the context, among those countries, how they're performing compared to others, kind of stuff. So when you have too many unique values, sometimes like you want to create other group to reduce the number of the countries, or you want to use a limit values to literally limit for like top something or based on the conditions. Or you want to actually, instead of like reducing, you want to actually keep those, but highlight only like particular values that you're interested in to show the context. So those are the things you can do. Okay. Then the last thing is sometimes you want to visualize the variation and uncertainty. So for example, in this data, I want to, one way to look at it is what is the, you have these countries, right? And then like you want to see like, what is that? It's like a bounce rate. I want to compare with that. And then again, I want to do just average of the bounce rate or something. Okay. Then, okay, so this is too many. So like, let's use the other group again. So like I want to create, let's limit the x-axis value to be top 10 based on about the session, number of sessions or something. And these are the countries. Okay, so these are like the top 10. And then like I want to compare and how they're performing in terms of bounce rate. So this is we took this average, and then the actual data is a kind of day by day. So like I want to see like a daily average of the bounce rate. And if you know the statistics, you kind of start feeling like, hey, something's missing here, because the when I go to the bounce rate, so bounce rate so has a variation. Sometimes good, sometimes not. Like even in one country, Japan, sometimes 20%, sometimes 80%. So instead of just looking at the average, I want to see the sort of variation or distribution, if you will. Then you can do, for example, a box plot to see like how that bounce rate changes, or like you might want to see by the violin plot, which is combining the box plot and the density plot to see the variation. Or if you are concerned about average numbers, then you might want to use the error bar, and then you see with the standard error. So standard error, that range of standard error is shown as this black line with some kind of what do you call it? Okay, dots, not the dots. I don't even know how to describe this. We call it this part is the error bar, but this blue part is also well. So it's kind of confusing. But nonetheless, you can change the range from standard error to 95% confidence interval. And then if you want to just focus on the range or interval, and then you can actually show this way. So here, like we can see, for example, like Japan bounce rate is pretty high, and then compared to other countries, there's something different. But for example, Australia, let's sort by the y-axis. So around here, from like Australia to India, so there's average-wise there's a difference, but when you compare with the interval, there's not so much difference. And then maybe like the next group is Brazil, France, Germany. But even then, I think like for example France, the confidence interval is pretty long. So it's kind of compared to India, there's not much maybe difference. And then like we can see like Spain is significantly smaller compared to others, and so on. So I'm not going to go into the detail of the confidence interval. I think maybe like we can plan on doing something more like basic of statistics at some point in this webinar. Okay, so you can not only visualize the summarized values such as average or sum and so on, you can, I think this is why this type of the view gives you even more idea about how exactly the data is like. Okay, so the next topic, I think the time is a little push behind, but another next topic is so data wrangling. So data wrangling is actually really cool. Sometimes data wrangling is really the core part of analysis. Sometimes people take data wrangling as sort of like a data pre-process or like something you have to do before you get into the analysis. But I don't think that way. Like to me, sometimes you have to do that way, but most of the time, like you sort of like as part of the analysis, you want to see the data from different angle when you try to analyze, and then you do the data wrangling, and then that after the data wrangling, the data you see itself is already giving you a lot of information. So so let's take a look at what that means. So text data wrangling, joining, merging, there are a bunch of things you can do. But in this topic, I want to cover this text data wrangling and joining. I'm not sure like we have time for merging, but let's go with data wrangling first. text wrangling first. So text data almost always needs cleanup. You take like extracting the data, removing the data, replacing the data, text, or converting, and then so on. So many things you can do. But in Explorer, you can use UI to do many things. For example, extracting the second word or last word and so on. Or you can remove particular text that matches with whatever the text you give or so on. But here, let's take the example. And what I want to do is here's a landing page pass you get from like Google Analytics. And then you want to see, in this case, you notice that here, if you visualize this, like, hey, this is like a landing page pass, and then you get something like this, and then that doesn't really give you much information. What we want to do here in this case, this is actually our data. So when you go to our page, and there's an insight page where you can search from like tutorials and notes and other people's data, and not other people necessarily, but data or insight and notes or dashboard that examples and stuff, or somebody publish. When you do the search, the URL becomes this thing called Q equal. That's like a query. And then if you use a tag and then you get tag column exploratory hour or something like that, you don't have to use a tag. Then you can get like, let's say Q equal, for example, like data wrangling or random forest or something like that. So we have this data. We can get this data from Google Analytics. And then once you get this, and then like, what if like we can get this like a search term, and then we can visualize that to compare like which, how people querying or something. So we can do, let's do this quick demo here. I have created, already imported this data here. So this is like a landing page pass. And then like I have only like number of sessions, but I'm interested in this search query. So like some of the URL doesn't even have the parameter. That means it's not from the inside page. So I want to focus on whatever the URL that includes this Q equal, because that means people search. You can search in a different way, different pages, but whenever like you search, you have your URL will include this Q equal. So first, this is that's a filtering business. So like I want to see, I'm going to use a contains as the filter operator. And then let's say like if it contains Q equal, and then that's only 982. And is that okay? Q equal value contains, yeah, that's okay. So we have like a Q equal things. Yeah, we have like about like 1,000 rows now. And then from here, like what I want to do is, okay, for example, this one is like a note, tag is note. And sometimes people like are creating with Twitter and so on. So those are the terms that like I want to actually dissect, extract, then so that like we can visualize it. So let's take a look here. First thing I want to do is I want to take like this Q equal, so like any word after this Q equal, but I'm not interested in this like language part, because when you can actually click on the English button or Japanese button to get that translated page, I'm not interested in that part. I'm interested in this particular Q equal parameter. That's our focus. So in that case, first, you can work with URL, and then let's say like you want to get the domain name and so on. One of them is called get the parameter. And then this opens the create calculation UI, and which is basically muted step. Then you can say, hey, what is the parameter name? In this case, the Q is the parameter name. And then this URL underscore param function extract that parameter value. So if I click on run button, and then like you see here, and that's the Q equal and the value of the Q equal parameter. Okay, so that's pretty cool. There was seems like a big parameter here. Okay, so now from here, what I want to do is a couple things. Number one, you notice that like there's a tag, there's a multiple tag sometimes, or sometimes there's multiple word. then I want to actually count number of the terms. Therefore, this one, I want to separate these two, so like consider as different terms, like Excel and a data source. To do, I want to represent. I want to present this like each term as each row. I mean, I want to separate those, but not to the separate columns. I want to separate to the to different rows. To do from this column header menu, and then you have the separate, and separate to rows by this time. If I do by the space, then sometimes it's data wrangling also get data and wrangling. So I want to use this tag, but if I use a tag with the two tags, so you know what? Before that, like I want to actually get rid of first tag first, and then it will, if there are 2 or 3 tags, then you can use that as a separator to separate the terms. So what I mean is, I'm going to start with this like a text data wrangling UI, and then let's do the remove text. And then if I do tag semicolon, so these will be, if I click on the preview, these will be removed. Okay, but when you have 2 tags, let's say, is there any good example? Here. So if you have 2 tags, then the second tag will remain. Then we can actually use that as a separator to separate those to the different rows. So if I click round bottom, so now the first tag disappear. And then from here, I want to do separate to rows. And then how we want to separate? In this case, I want to use a custom so that separate character is actually this tag column. And what that means is here. So now, whenever like we used to have 2 tags, they disappear, and they're presented as different, like Excel and data source. That now those become the different rows. Okay. And then from here, then like now just a matter of sort of like cleaning it up. So for example, one of the things is so these like a kind of like a separator, we can use that too. But I'm gonna skip this for now. But what I want to do is 2 things. Sometimes people use lowercase or sometimes uppercase. I want to actually make it consistent so that like we can count as a different things, the same thing. Sorry. Another thing is these special character, like a hyphen or double quote and so on, because I want to consider Excel double quote and then Excel as the same things. Also, sometimes there's a trading space at the beginning and the end, so I want to clean those up as well. So couple cleanup. So here, text data wrangling UI and then remove. And then remove, for example, let's start with, there's like a punctuation characters. And this will get rid of those like double quote or like hyphen and all the stuff once. So let's do that. And then the second thing is I want to actually convert to title case. So here, select the convert. And then you can do the uppercase, but in this case, let's do that. Let's do that the lowercase, just make it easier. So here, all the stuff used to be title case becomes lowercase. So now like every single word is presented as lowercase. So that's good. And then the last thing I want to do is just kind of trimming that space. Usually you don't do this in one single shot like this. This is a demo, but usually once you start visualizing, you start noticing some of the problem, then you actually come back and then do that data wrangling. Anyway, so from remove, and then I can do is not the text. It's like there's a reading and trading spaces. And then like I can click round bottom. And then looks, I'm ready. I can keep going like other stuff as well. But at this point, I'm gonna just stop right here. And then go to the chart. And then select the, typically I like using the bar chart, but today I wanna try with word count, word cloud chart type. Then I'm gonna select this word. And then like, I can see like what are the frequently used word. Also here, when you go to the property, and there's a parameter called minimum frequency for words. So this means at least 8 times need to show up in order for that particular term to show up in the chart. I can change this to, for example, like 3. Then you get, I think, more characters start showing up as well. And then, of course, like you can use the bar chart and other chart to show the number of the frequency or the counts of the numbers as well. So by doing this, then you can start visualizing your data that you could have sort of like a kind of stop just looking at a page, landing page pass, but landing page pass, think of it like it has a lot of useful information such as this. Okay. So another thing, what I like to do, 2 things I wanted to do, but I'm not sure like we have enough time. Number 1 is here is, I think, the page views. Okay, let's use this one. Oh, no, we got the, didn't we grab that data just now? Okay, yeah, here. So we had this data we were looking at. So let's use the time series profit algorithm today. And then for this one, I actually just did this webinar last week. And then when you go to our page, and then you can query like profit, and then you should see the recording as well. So, and also like I'm gonna send you the link in the email after this along with the recording. So for the detail of the profit, I recommend you to take a look. But here, I just want to give you a very quick example here. So when you have the page view or engagement, not engagement, sessions, and then conversion, whatever the numerical values, you can actually forecast based on that trend. And then if your data tend to have some kind of patterns or seasonality, then it's easier to focus. So what that mean? So like under the analytics, you want to go time series forecasting, bracket profit, and then you want to select the date, and then like you can say like, hey, what level? Maybe let's say go with like a week or months or something like that. And then the value in this case, let's go with the sessions. How session is? Let's go with maybe like page view or something here. And then this is the exact same thing like I did for creating the chart, except this time I'm basically applying, building that time series forecasting model. And this is what I get. And then this one is yearly seasonality. Oh yeah, yearly seasonality is not there. So sometimes you get something like this, and I'm not sure like what this thing is forecasting. And then the time series forecasting with profit algorithm is an additive model. So like it detects the trend in the data, overall trend. Usually like you go to the trend tab, and then this green is the trend. And then also it detects the yearly seasonality, or some when you have the granular data like day level, then it detects the weekly seasonality and so on. This case, in order to for profit to get the yearly seasonality, you need to have like more than 2 years of data. So for what that means? So for example, in this case, if I say there's like a 3, then 3 years of the data, then that will have enough data for the profit to find, to detect the yearly seasonality. Then if I update this one, and then if I run again, and I think this time there is a yearly seasonality being detected. Therefore, the forecasting got much better than before. Okay, so good. And then so that this blue value is the actual data, and the orange is the forecasting. So now, if I click on the property, then so this only the orange part is the future, so that we don't have the actual data yet. And then profit is suggesting this. And in that period, you can actually control. So let's say like I want to focus for 52 weeks, which is about a year. So this unit is always coming from here, aggregation time level. Then if I click apply button, and then like now like we can sort of focus into the future. So, and this is pretty cool. Instead of like sort of like a guessing, like hey, maybe going up or going down or something like that, you can actually consider the seasonality, meaning in a year, sometimes the page access goes up, sometimes goes down. For example, December, we don't expect many people coming to our website. Or January as well, but we expect many in April. So that you can bring this type of information from the data data in the into the forecasting algorithm as well. For the detail, I recommend you to take a look at the recording from the last week's session. So, and then we still have, we're almost gone now, but I think we still have a little bit. So one thing I wanted to do um, today, which is this engagement analysis. Okay, so the engagement is sometimes we, let's say that you want to improve, you have the website and you want to improve the conversion rate, or you want to reduce the churn rate, or such things. And then, but in terms of metrics, there's something called lagging indicator, and there's something called leading indicator. Lagging indicator is that something, metrics to confirm what happened, like revenue or sales or something like that, or even like a conversion. Because that, why we call it lagging, because by the time you saw the value of the metrics, it's too late to take any action. You sort of like, okay, that's good. That last month we sold $50,000. That's it. You can't do any action from there. You can't change the course. Instead, what you want to do is you want to find a leading indicator. Then by the time you get the value of the metrics, then you can take some actions to change the course, right? You can control to maybe like improve or reduce. So those are called leading indicator. So the conversion rate or churn rate are basically the lagging indicator. The moment you saw the conversion rate, it's like a 10%. It's too late. But what instead you want is something called engagement. If the users are more engaging on your website or by using your web service, then those type of users tend to convert. If you have like freemium kind of business model or something, or if you have like a e-tail e-business or something, then if your users are doing something on their website, eventually they will purchase something. Same thing for the churn rate too. Like if your users are engaged on your website, accessing a lot, then probably less chance for them to cancel your service, right? So engagement usually is more important and useful. So the goal is to, let's say that you want to improve the engagement, right? Then the challenge now is that how we can measure the engagement. What is the engagement? So sometimes I see like some folks use DAU, daily active user, or MAU, which is a monthly active user. And then they show that chart, and then like they talk about like, hey, engagement is going up and down or something like that. But activity is not necessarily equal engagement. Okay, so this is sometimes like we get confused, because as business grows, they tend to, the DAU, MAU, or weekly active user, and whatever, they tend to go up, regardless of whether users are actually really engaged or not, because those are you can manipulate those numbers by spending a lot of money on advertisement and marketing, or spending assigning a lot of sales folks and then bringing those people, and then all of a sudden the DAU and MAU can go up. But that's not what you want. You want is the same users spending more time using your product or service, or purchasing on your website. So engagement is activity is not necessarily engagement. Then what is engagement? One way to do is, this is actually very popular in a startup, or especially Silicon Valley, is a DAU mile, or DAU divided by MAU. Okay. So this is a measure that how often the same users visit the site or use your service within a month. So it was popularized by Facebook, who was using it to grow the user base at the early stage. I'm not sure today, but you used to using it, and then therefore like everybody was like, "Wow, this is great." But by using this, you can't really manipulate by just bringing a lot of one-time users. So like, let's say like you spend a lot of marketing stuff, and one user comes to the website and DAU goes up, MAU goes up. But if that person never come back, and then you're not, those users are not really beneficial for you. But therefore, when you have DAU divided by MAU, then you can finally see how engaged the users are. And then to do so, DAU or divided by MAU, then you get engagement. Sometimes happen like DAU going up, MAU going up, everything looks great. When you get this DAU mile, then things sometimes going, you can see some downward trend as well. Okay, so how we do it? Well, in Google Analytics, you have something called one-day active users, which is basically the DAU, and a 30-day active users, which is basically the MAU. So when you have this, that means you get those data and then you divide those, then you get engagement. Well, things are not always that simple, right? Because there's one problem, which is when you try to get those data together, you get the error message because the Google Analytics, in order to get the 30 days active users, they already aggregated. So you have, let's say, like January, February, March kind of data. And then a one-day active user is basically day by day. So the aggregation level is different. Therefore, it can't be queried together. Okay, that's fine. If that's the case, we can get the one-day information data and the 30-day data separately. Then we can join them together in Exploratory by using the UI. And then you can, once you join, then you get DAU column, MAU column. Once you get those two columns, then all you need to do is just calculate, just a divide calculation. It's that simple. And then you get the engagement. Then you can visualize. So I'm gonna quickly do here is go to the Google Analytics data, and then here I think it's like a date, yeah, date time, and then here is a one-day active users right here. So I'm gonna select that, and then this is like one. Here we go, and then that's all I need to do. So this is um, day one, and then yeah, day one data, and I get this data. And then like I'm gonna do the same thing for, again, Google Analytics. And then like this time, like I wanna get 30 days. So 30 days, and then same thing, I wanna get the date dimension. And then like I have like, so basically this is a date, but this column is basically showing the 30 days prior number of users over the 30 days prior. And then I'm gonna do is like a day 30. Okay. And then let's um, yeah, let's keep as is. Sometimes I rename, but I just realized that I can just keep going with this. Then once we get this, and then all you need to do is that we can just join the day one and day 30. So by using this date column, so there's a join from the menu, and then like I want to select the target data frame, and then like use the same column, date and date, and then we get the 30 days column added to this data frame. Once I get this, then all I need to do is just create calculation and divide it by 30 days users. When you see this like a backtick, that means it's a special characters. So sometimes when you have the space in a column name, in this case, you start the column name with a number, and then that's considered as a special character, a special column name. So therefore, it automatically check the backtick. But usually you don't have to, like when you don't have this kind of character in the column name. Nonetheless, I want to select the create the engagement column, engagement. Then I get these numbers. And once I get this, then all I need to do is, let's say like line chart, and then maybe like a go with like a day, and then engagement rate for the last, I think the default, what did I do? Last 30 days of the engagement. So usually you want to do like last 6 months, last year, um, and yeah, you want to expand that time period.